fire services as well. Our budget is also a result of being an extremely wealthy city comparatively with significant tax base. As stated, some of that tax base and some of those resources are going down, but we're going to continue to work hard to make sure that we are able to fund the services needed. Next slide. So, two parts of any budget: revenue, which is the money that comes in, and of course our expenses, which is the money that goes out. Fortunately, we typically had more revenue coming in than going out, and we had some surpluses, but I want to continue to reiterate that that is not going to be the case, unfortunately, for this budget season. San Francisco, unlike the federal government, we must pass a balanced budget. So we need to net zero when we pass our budget here in the city and county of San Francisco. We have been passing a rolling 2-year budget, and we'll continue to do that again for the next couple of years. Our approved budgets are based on assumptions of growth in revenues to accompany any growth that we may have in costs, and any decline in projected revenues, which has been mentioned several times, will lead to a deficit. Next slide. So just to break down the city budget here in the city, we have over 50 city departments here in San Francisco. Some of the departments everybody knows: the Department of Public Health, Police Department, Fire Department, Department of Human Services. We have several city departments, over 50, and naturally we have to fund a lot of the services for our departments. We also have 50% of our budget, which is comprised of self-supporting activities and includes enterprise departments like the port, MTA, the airport, and the PUC. Of course, they actually earn their own revenue from maybe rates that they may charge to consumers or customers or residents in the city, or businesses like at the airport through lease agreements and different financial obligations that we may get there. Approximately 50% of our budget is comprised of the city's general fund, which support public services such as public health, youth programs, police and fire services, social services, and our Department of Public Works. It's a portion of the general fund that the mayor and the board of supervisors makes decisions about every year. This is typically what we call the city's discretionary budget, and even some of that is already carved out. Our enterprise department resources are already carved out to go in certain places. General fund is what we typically are able to use to fund, of course, our main services, but also some discretionary services which allows us to do the things that we typically may want to enhance your communities. It is a portion of the general fund that besides the main revenue generating departments, most of the city's 50+ departments receive a significant amount of general fund dollars. In the last fiscal year, the general fund totaled $6.2 billion. And again, not all of that is discretionary. Next slide. I think very important for tonight's conversation is just as we go through the budget process, here's the timeline for what we actually do for the next couple of months when it comes to budget. So this actually helps you be able to advocate for your communities, advocate for your organizations, advocate for the resources that you may want to see reach the community. June 1st, the mayor will release her budget to the board of supervisors. The departments will begin to present to our budget and appropriations committee as well as our budget and finance committee during the month of June. We're going to have hearings on June 14th, 15th, and 16th. And of course, all of our hearings you are able to see either online or come in and participate in person. The departments will continue to present those budgets at those hearings. On June 2nd, we'll have a second round of hearings, and the Board of Supervisors Budget and Appropriations Committee reviews and proposes changes to city budget submission, and we'll have additional hearings June 21st, June 22nd, and June 23rd. So departments will present. They'll tell us what they plan on spending. They've been given instructions by the mayor to cut a certain percentage of their budget. We'll look at their budget, we'll try to identify where we may have some waste, try to identify where we can actually use and allocate resources better, and then we will make decisions on what to do with those areas we identify as maybe not as productive as we think for us to have a healthy budget as we move forward. June 26th, we'll have public comment all day. That's when the public will be able to call in, express your views, your concerns, your interests, your priorities around the budget. And you can again do that in person, or you can call in on that day. Then we'll begin our budget deliberations, and the budget is approved by the Board of Supervisors and submitted to the mayor June 28th. And hopefully everything goes well according to plan. We have a major budget, and the mayor signs the budget. That's the timeline over the next couple of months. Obviously, our office is meeting with individuals, meeting with groups, meeting with leaders of the city to have conversations about priorities, even right now, even before that official part of the budget process begins. Next slide. One more. Did we go? Maybe that's not on. Or maybe I went too far. Oh, sorry about that, Lance. You can go back one. That's on me. So the add-back process, which is something I talked about and touched on just a little bit. Each year, the Board of Supervisors receives the proposed budget from the mayor's office and has the opportunity to make changes. It's often referred to as the add-back process because the board can make reductions in the mayor's proposed budget and literally add back the same amount of funds for the board's priorities. The board's phase is seen as the most public phase of the budget process, and as a result, the board tends to see more demand, particular requests from community groups, especially when there is proposed cuts or reductions on the table. For the past few years, the funds available for add-backs have exceeded $40 million over 2 years. There's also a relatively new practice of each district supervisor being allocated some funds, which I talked about before, and it has ranged from $500,000 to $1 million to spend on district priorities. Next slide. And each year, the Board of Supervisors hold public meetings, make reductions to the mayor's budget, and the add-back funding to the budget. Many organizations and community groups have learned how to navigate the budget process and make requests to the Board of Supervisors, but there is certainly room for expanded transparency and access to the process, especially for underrepresented communities. That's why we make sure we hold forums like this, discussions in the community like this, because there are people who are very savvy at fighting for their needs, galvanizing and organizing the community. So we want to make sure that we allow space for everybody to participate in the budget process. That's why we're here today. That's why we'll have a forum on May 1st. And that's why we'll continue to have discussions throughout the budget process. Next slide. So our priorities for District 10 office, which are similar every year, are no cuts to our existing programs and services that we have in our community today, services that are making sure people are fed, making sure we have resources to address our unhoused needs in our community, make sure we have resources to address our safety plan, and make sure that people are able to enjoy District 10 and San Francisco with the resources and services that they need in community. Safety plan implementation, prioritize programming serving our most vulnerable populations, resources that support education, equity and career pathways, as well as business supports for underrepresented communities, resources aimed at investment to reverse the impacts of structural and systemic racism. Reparations is an example. Housing stabilization, including public housing. As we talked earlier, in a budget where we're probably going to see a deficit of reduction, it's still our obligation and our duty to make sure folks don't end up on the street, make sure that we have resources in place to fight evictions and help people be able to stay in their homes and be stabilized here in the city. So we're going to be fighting to make sure that that still happens. I would say that this list of priorities was developed prior to the latest news of the $291 billion deficit for this next fiscal year and the additional 488 projected budget deficit that next following year. So I would really say we should probably be focusing on making sure that we don't have cuts to existing services. That is going to be, of course, a main priority of this office to preserve the resources and services that are in place, number one, because we don't want to decrease any level of safety net, and then, of course, trying to find the resources to support things that are needed that may not exist today. Next slide. So now, this is where we are opening up the floor. We're going to have a facilitated conversation on a couple of questions. One is, what is most important for your neighborhood and the city budget? 2, what is the biggest priority for your neighborhood? 3, what is most important to you? And we also do have a link to a survey. Is that on this slide? There we go. And so that QR code will get you to a survey that you can complete. And also be another way to communicate to our office in terms of your budget needs, your budget priorities, and things that you want to see as we move forward. With that said, I will just, before we go into, before I bring up Tracy, we'll facilitate this portion of the town hall tonight. Are there any clarifying questions on the process or just about the presentation itself? Definitely. And without using my regular, normal Shaman interpretation of the deficit, I'm going to read what was in here. So again, approved budgets are based on assumptions of growth and revenues to accompany a growth in costs. Any decline in projected revenues leads to a deficit. So in this case, we typically have a certain amount of revenue that we project going into a fiscal year. And what happens is the resources that we thought we were going to receive as a city and county did not actually come in, and didn't come in at those numbers. So we thought we may have had revenue coming from tourism, for example, hospitality, for example, hotel sector, for example. That revenue did not reach previous proposed forecast, and that leads to a proposed deficit. And that's why we are looking at a deficit of $291 million for this fiscal year. I will say that obviously there will be other points during the budget process where we will look at those projections and see if they are 100% accurate. Just to give a prime example, typically happens, can't guarantee it'll happen this year. When we get the governors may revise, sometimes there's money that we find we didn't know what was going to be on the table. So the revenue projections increase, and then we're able to include that to address our deficit issues. So more information to come. That's why I'm always worried about stating exact numbers in terms of where we are in a forum like this in March, when we actually get the final budget from the mayor on June 1st. Barbara?
I just had a question about the process. Thank you for laying that out. I wasn't aware of all the pages. With the various rounds, is public comment invited? That or at the very end? How does that work?
So some of the departmental conversations, public comment will be able to be held, but once we dive into the budget, we'll just continue. It'll be one continuous meeting, and so we won't have public comment until that public comment date, which is on June 26th. So you'll be able to come, listen. Obviously, you can always reach out to our officers and reach out to us but there'll be one day where we'll have everybody be able to voice their concerns in the public sector. So you may have seen my colleagues approve $25 million supplemental for police overtime, for example, which is coming out of the reserve. $20-something million supplemental for clean streets, the Department of Public Works, for increased heavy equipment, more staffing. So yes, there will be resources coming from the reserve to use going forward. But we're not, those votes have not been finalized, there are other supplementals that are being requested. So in terms of what we have left in the reserve after the next couple of weeks, I can get a more accurate number after we go through those supplementals and that process. Presentation will be available online. We can make sure we post it, and also we'll send it out in our next newsletter as well, so you can see exactly what we're doing today. All right, Tracy.
I think I agree with that one.
Sure.
But, so if you want to talk together, everyone has to wait for like 1 to 3 minutes. If not, we can divide it into 3 groups. So raise your hand if you want to do it as a group. Raise your hand if you want to break out. Okay, so we're going to do it as a group. And so these are the questions I'm going to ask them, and I'm going to go around, and I'm going to go one from the back, one from the front. I'm going to try to mix it up so that everyone has a chance to speak. So the very first, and this is for your mistake, thank you to my other data over here. What is most important for your neighborhood in the city budget? You just heard about a deficit. You heard all departments are being told to cut another 5%. If Supervisor Wells is fighting for anything that is important to you, what is the most important thing for your neighborhood in the city budget? What is the biggest priority for your neighborhood? And what is most important to you? So an example of that, what is the most important for your neighborhood in the city budget can be, we want better transportation. What is the biggest priority for your neighborhood? It can be, we want more, ambassadors in Mississippi Valley. What is most important to you? You can say childcare, after-school programs, anything that is most important to you or the clients that you represent. So, first talking about the neighborhood. Given that there may be a lot of cuts, what is the one thing that you don't want to have cut? And I'm going to start right here.
My name is Ariane Harrison. I am the founder and ED of the Marie Harrison Community Foundation, Inc. for Social and Environmental Justice. What's most important to me personally as a resident is that we start addressing some of the EJ issues that we have in this community. Our community is getting sick over a period of time. We have the highest level of respiratory lung disease as well as cancer amongst children and adults. And the reason for that is because we are overly industrialized here at Bayview Hunters Point. We're industry meets housing. So in order to mitigate that, health should be a priority to us because we cannot enjoy the fruits of our labor in equity without our health. And we have to guard the health of our children that are here still in the community, or they're going to end up like me with a high level of chemical exposure in their body. So I think that funding EJ, making sure that San Francisco Department of Environment actually has the tools that they need to be fluid in the community and also presumably be at the table to support some of these very, very clear issues that has been transpiring in the community is extremely important. And also, I like beautiful parks and spaces too, so that would take a level of really being a do-it-first city in San Francisco as far as addressing climate justice because our climate reality is that we are having a serious issue here in Bayview and have for long-term residents. A lot of people are coming up positive for uranium and plutonium exposure as well as strontium. So I think we need to have an global and feasible plan to clean that Navy shipyard to the best of our ability. And then we need to also take into account the science and what it's saying about the predictions of sea level rise. I know that there is a plan that they have in place is creating a seawall, but it stops when it gets to District 10. And we need to change that and how that's projected. That's extremely important because anything that we build on top of this mess is just asking for a natural disaster to happen later. So I want the pretty parks and spaces. We should also do that too, but we have to take care of business first. My name is Ariane Harrison, and I'm out with that.
Okay, so let's go to you in the back.
Hello, my name is Mario Paz. For me, I think the most important priority that we continue to support our low-income children, youth, and families here in Bayview. Let's protect our after-school programs in our schools. Many of our children continue to experience learning loss, and they just are not succeeding the way they should. In this community, every child should be able to thrive and succeed. And so let's make sure we preserve, and there are no cuts to our after-school programs and all the support the schools have, and that we continue to support our low-income families, which allow increasing homelessness. So I think it's really important that we support all children, youth, and family programs in the Bayview. Thank you.
Is it to work, Trace?
Hi everyone, my name is Diane Wesley Smith and I grew up in 45 West Point Road. What's most important to me, I echo what Marie Harrison said. The land is not clean at the Hunters Point Shipyard. The data says that. And they're building on top. So for example, we, the big realtors, we were going to just sell everything. We were going to have all this fun and all that. I can't sell a thing because the land is not clean, and I will not sell anything until the land is clean. We're still going to the doctor for breast exams and all sorts of things. A lot of our people have died early. So we have to clean it up. We're going to build on top of trash. Last thing I want to say, the sea levels will rise. The guarantees have come with these $700,000 homes that Lennar is building. The reason they're so cheap is because you only get a 10-year guarantee on a 10-year guarantee for coverage of hazardous and toxic materials. They have to clean it up. You can't build on top of dirt. It's not economic. It's this thing.
Hello, my name is Tanya Randall. I'm the Administrative Director for the Marie Harrison Community Foundation. What I think is most important for our neighborhood is environmental enforcement. We have great laws in the city and in the state, but if you don't follow the law, it's worthless. So that's my pet peeve. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oscar James. I'm a native of Bayview, Hunters Point for the last 77 years. My major concern is the young people in this community not knowing the history of this community, not knowing the history of their foreparents on all races, but especially the African American community. We need to have a program set up for them to make sure that they learn their history, make sure they have different jobs and job opportunities and business opportunities. Those are the things I'm most concerned with. Being a person who grew up in this community, most of the people in our community have the lack of opportunities to create businesses or to create facilities for higher education. We need to start these grammar schools and junior high schools to teach these people about the history of this community. There's a lot of shoulders we stand on in this community, both with Ms. Westbrook, the joint housing, and all the other projects that we had. The Christopher Adams Club that nobody knows about, which was the first program that was built or bought by residents of big African mothers in maybe Hunters Point, selling dinners to make sure young people that in this community 70 years ago had opportunity to go and learn about themselves. The place was named Christopher Addicts. That was the first time people of my color learned who was Christopher Addicts, which most of you in this room probably do not know. He was the first person who died in the Revolutionary War. So we need to know the history, both African Americans, the Asian person in this community, the third world people in this community, need to know their history. Then that way we stop fighting and hating each other. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Susan Murphy. I am also a commissioner here for the Southeast. I also represent Faces SF as the Senior Director of Community Partnership, and I'm a resident of over 50 years in Hunters Point. For me, in regards to justice, environmental justice, I was with Dr. Coleman for his Bayview Hunters Point Health Task Force back in the day, before the Superfund, before they got rid of all of that, and that's the reason why we really fought for environmental justice regarding that. Concerns also is our youth and young adults' safeties in all of the districts and in all of the communities. So even youth programs, I also represent, there's childcare. Having childcare for our communities so that they can go to work in regards to being able to have jobs, workforce development, transportation. I've known where before the bus wouldn't stop in certain areas and would pass by the children because they thought it was too dangerous for them to stop, so the children couldn't even get on the bus. So transportation, and that's all I can think of for now.
Good afternoon, my name is Jason Ross Brown. I just wanted to share a thought. We're talking about environmental justice. I wanted to share a thought that was newly presented to me called environmental prevention. That is making sure our environment does not haul our youth to drugs and alcohol. I feel like policy could change that. There's something that we can do to put up more signage in our environment, inviting our kids to things that are positive. So this is just signage. These are just big posters, but enough of them will hopefully have some impact on our youth. Just a lot of signs telling them which direction to go and steering them away from all the cigarette signs and the drug signs and the sex signs and all the signs that we see in our environment. Our environment is not just polluted in the dirt, it's polluted on the roads, it's polluted on the billboards. They pollute our environment every way possible to get our kids in this pipeline, and I'm not even started. But anyways, thank you for what you're doing, I appreciate it.
Good afternoon, my name is Andres Cortez. I live in the south part of the Bayview neighborhood. I just want to bring attention again and echoing some of the comments of other folks here, that one of the most important things that we should be doing is regarding education. And education about like having our children from our neighborhood to be able to go to school, for example, to get education of good quality in a safe and healthy environment. I live across the street from the Bret Hart Elementary School. The school has a completely neglected, abandoned lot that is used as a dumping ground, and it's just less than 100 feet away from where kids take classes. The school district says there is not enough budget to actually sort out that situation. This connects, of course, with all the other issues that we've been talking about. How are our youth gonna be solving the inequality problems here from the economic standpoint? They don't get a good education in a safe environment. Additional to that, and also following in the same line of environmental hazards, we need to actually alternative. The third issue that I would talk about as an important one is infrastructure. We cannot walk around our neighborhood. Where I live, probably half of the sidewalks are missing or broken. So I would like to just bring attention to those three issues. Thank you so much.